See where the city had another big brouhaha last night at their meeting.
7 o'clock, the meeting will come to order. I'm Grace Lesbrance, Cascade Township Supervisor. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook.
Here.
Trustee McDonald.
Here.
Supervisor Lesbrance.
Here,
Treasurer Pierce.
Here.
Trustee Kessel.
Here.
Trustee Shipley.
Here.
And Clerk Slater here.
please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion or discussion for approval of tonight's agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Support.
It's a motion to approve the agenda as presented by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Kessel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First up tonight, presentations, and we have some members of our planning commission who have been working really hard and have a report presentation for the board. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Alan and I are going to present together. Each of us will take a certain portion of the report. We're going to move through this as quickly as we can, hopefully within 15-20 minutes. And I would ask that you hold your questions to the end, and then we'll get into in-depth answers and hopefully good dialogue between us. I'd like to talk a little bit first about the timing of the process recommendation study that you have in front of you. Almost exactly a year ago, on July 7th last year, the Round Hill Study Subcommittee of the Planning Commission, 4 members were appointed to facilitate a study of the Planning Department oversight of a PUD developer. Our first meeting was on July 7th. The Planning Commission reviews the Round Hill Study Subcommittee findings and developed a list of 8 recommendations on December 14th of 2021. Recommendation number 9 was added. Ben requested that the Planning Commission complete their in-depth study by June 30th, which is a date recently passed, and present it to the Township Board of Trustees, and that's why we're here tonight. The original Round Hill Study recommendation presentation was made to the Township Board of Trustees on January 12th of this year. The strategic planning meeting, we had a strategic planning meeting with Ben, Brian Hilbrens, and Chris Nordyke on February 15th to kind of kick off the next step of the process to investigate the planning department process issues in greater detail and involve township staff and all future meetings, discussions, and recommendations. And primarily was Ben and Brian, and later on the zoning director joined us for those meetings also. The process recommendation subcommittee kickoff meeting was Wednesday, March 23rd at township offices. The final process recommendation subcommittee meeting was June 22nd, so that recently took place. And the staff completes the process recommendations notebook printing and assembly Friday, July 1st, roughly. The subcommittee participants include Scott Reese, member Norduck, Ben Rappin, Alan, and myself. Also included are Ben Swayze, our manager, Township Planning Director Brian Hilbrens, Township Zoning Director Madison Smith Jacoby. Location of all meetings took place at the township offices for the convenience of the staff, and they took place in the back conference room. Frequency of our all committee meetings, we held those every other Wednesday at 4 o'clock. I wanted it at the end of the day so people could kind of, get together and focus on what we had. And if we had to go a little bit long, we could. But as it turned out, virtually every meeting ended right at 5 o'clock. So they were all basically 1-hour meetings. The meeting dates were March 23rd through June 22nd. We had 7 meetings in total. Recording of the meeting, Scott Reese and Alan took the notes. One meeting I had to miss because of some surgery, and Scott took over that meeting and ran the meeting. And Alan took the notes on that meeting. Notebook final editing, Ben, Brian, and Madison. And notebook assembly, Jessica Stein, she did a great job putting everything together and making it look real professional. Notebook completion was Thursday, June 30th. The PC subcommittee focus was Planning Commission recommendations to the board and further development of township internal process issues. All this really kind of developed out of the problems we had with Round Hill development and some of the problems that developed within the planning department. We needed to make sure we had a better process in place to address those concerns. I'd like to briefly go through the original 9 recommendations that were presented to this board on January 12th. I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights of those. Number 1, all documents, including PUD ordinances, master deeds, stormwater maintenance agreements, etc., must be recorded in accordance with current rules. Number 2, a process needs to be defined and used to record key documents and milestones. In both those first 2, really, the software we're prepared to use really will address those 2 items. Number 3, establish a selection and approval process for new township planning director. Well, Ben was able to help us with that. And right now we've got a great planning director in place already. So that worked out well for everybody. Number 4, any deviation from the original approved site plan needs to be approved before changes are started. Number 5, establish roles and responsibilities for enforcement of zoning ordinances and site plans. Number 6, need an official seal to use on approved documents. I reviewed what Brian showed me and it looks fine, and we're going to use that on all the documents in the future. Number 7, need to coordinate Kent County Road Commission soil erosion and sedimentation controls with the township stormwater ordinance, so that the 2 go together well. That was really, the stormwater was not addressed correctly at Round Hill. Number 8, establish and document a concern resolution process for Cascade residents so that their concerns are brought to the front. And Alan did a great job on that. Number 9, implementation plan to be done basically with a study by June 30th. And that was, Ben brought that to the table. We added that in. The second part of the notebook is basically all of our meeting minutes, 1 through 7. I'm not going to read through all this. I don't want to put you to sleep. We've got a lot of detail in there. And it's just a good way to kind of see the history of how we developed the information. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Alan to talk about the next part, which is the plan unit development review process. No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Showing you what the section was.
Okay. Okay, basically, we went through the procedures manual, which is handed out to all planning commissioners, and we reviewed that, and we basically highlighted the wording changes in bold so that everybody could see it. And you'll see that in your notebook where we made modifications to that. It's pretty simple and pretty straightforward for that. Also added to this was a process for implementing amendments to the PUD review process in Chapter 21 amendments, talking about the proposed amendments, and they will require amending the zoning ordinance. And that's, I believe that's coming from Ben. Okay. The next portion is the computer software upgrade recommendation. And that was recommendation number 2. A process needs to be defined and used to record key documents and milestones. Currently, your building inspection services, Brian Wilson, the head of that, uses BSNA software, and it seems to work well. He really likes it. And what we're recommending is that that same software be used for the planning department, zoning, and zoning folks at the same time. And I believe you've already received a proposal from BSNA for training of the staff to use that and help them. And it's really on a daily basis. So while there's a dollar figure there, you may not have to use it all in order to get the staff up to speed on that. So Brian Wilson really speaks very highly of it. He does have some concerns that planning and zoning record keeping of current developments not interrupt the building department project records in any way. And Brian Hilbrans has received the BSNA proposal and can outline the costs for their services to the township. Okay.
Yeah, and so I was responsible, or actually the group was responsible for creating a hiring process. I mean, hopefully we never have to go through this again. You know, Brian's in the spot now, but we worked with Ben and his team and we came up with a formalized PMP process here for hiring. Starts off with advertising the position, right? And then we're going to have a basic interview panel that's going to include the township manager, whoever that may be, human resources director. Okay. The township supervisor or whomever they appoint, planning commission chair, whomever they appoint. From there, they will make a recommendation to the planning commission, where we will review that applicant. And then if the planning commission agrees with their findings, we'll move them forward to township board approval. So that's the process. It's actually formal now. We never had one before. So we actually have a process in place. The next section is duties and responsibilities. So we actually have created a list of everybody, and this is a living document. So everybody that's in the department, this is, you know, their contact information, who they are, what the roles and responsibilities are. Again, this list will be updated as people come and go and as responsibilities change. And we also created a proposed complaint procedure. We never really had one before. I mean, that was part of the problem with this Round Hill is that a citizen complained and it just kind of fell through the cracks. So I worked with Madison, who is the ordinance director. I actually called in 3 or 4 different complaints, called and emailed different people just to see how the process was, going through it myself. And we found that, you know, obviously I know the people and I know the contacts, so it was easier for me. But if somebody doesn't know that, going to the website was challenging. So we're going to make that easier. We're going to have a specific place right there in the home page where they can go for ordinance complaints. We're going to have an automatic email response if you email in. they get an automatic response saying, hey, somebody will be back in touch with you within 48 hours. Even if they don't have an answer, the expectation is that we will email them back within 48 hours saying, hey, we got your complaint. We're looking into it. Phone calls will be answered or returned within 48 hours also. My experience was that 9 times out of 10, either the person answered the phone and the 10th time they call me back the same day. So, but the expectation is your call will be returned within 48 hours. We have the BS&A software. So we will now track that complaint. That complaint will go into the software and it won't get lost anymore. We can track it. We can see what the steps were. Hey, call returned. Next step is I owe them a follow-up in 2 weeks for such and such. So it's something that we can now track. And we are committing that the complaints, the complaints will be reported back within 15 days, right? So if the complaint comes in, initial response comes back within 48 hours, we will have a hard response within 15 days, right? And that hard response means this is the action we're taking. These are the steps we're taking. Hey, we're having this person go to the site. I mean, more detail. And then we have an escalation path, right? If that person feels that their complaint isn't being addressed appropriately, we have an escalation path. They can get in touch with Ben or Brian. They can come to a planning meeting. They can come to a township meeting, but we have a path for them. If you're not satisfied, here are your next steps.
Section 7 talks about plan review and inspection services with responsible organizations. I really conferred with Brian Hilbrun's on this. Also, Wayne Harrell, the director of the Kent County Road Commission, to make sure that I had the correct names, phone numbers, all the latest listings. And you can see the names we've got in there. And in terms of stormwater inspection by the township, that will be whatever civil engineering firm that you are currently using at that time. And the last section, number 8, talks about our recommendation number 7, the need to coordinate King County Road Commission soil erosion and sedimentation controls with the township stormwater ordinance. I simply went through and pulled out a lot of the key language from the investigations we did last fall. And what seemed to be happening was that the road commission was basically doing everything, and the stormwater ordinance was being kind of ignored, and that just can't go on that way. And luckily, the Wayne Harrell and the folks over at Road Commission filed something like 20 complaints against the developer in that case. And finally, they put out a stop work order. They just kind of ran out of patience on that. So the key thing is the township really needs to have an engineer get out to these development sites and make sure that the ordinance is being followed. With that, we open it up to your questions. And I hope that was less than 15 minutes.
I've got a question or comment. We've been talking for quite a while now about hiring a in-house township engineer to do things like this. This would be in his or her purview to handle things like this, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Sounds like we could keep a township engineer busy on just this type of issue, let alone the other things that we've talked about.
Yeah, it'd be perfect job responsibility for that engineer. Hopefully it's a civil engineer.
Yeah, well, it's Ben's got to put out an RFD or whatever they call it for it. No, that's electronic chip. Anyways, he's got to put out a request to start try and hire one. One other comment that I've got, and I'll turn it over to my peers, is you guys did a fantastic job on this. I can foresee where it's going to prevent a lot of issues in the future. And I mean, water being over the dam already, we can't go back and use this to correct any problems in the past, but prevent problems in the future. So thanks for all your hard work.
One thing I'd say about the engineer is I me personally, I might want to pump the brakes on that a little bit. Let's see how the software works out. I mean, we can always take that next step and hire somebody, but if we don't have to spend that money and the software can take care of a lot of things, I guess I say let's.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
other
yeah.
issues too for the future engineer for the township too, but yeah, that could be, I'm sure,
Yeah.
worked in slowly.
Alan talked about the residents complaint
Mhm.
box on the website, which is a great idea. Is that just for ordinances or can that be for anything? For example, we've had customers or residents, talk about the serious issues with the Egypt Creek and the company and what's happened in their neighborhood and other residents talking about the over deer population. There's serious problems, but can they use that for those type of things as well?
We probably could make it like that. I mean, our job was just to look at obviously
intent is-
ordinance issues, but
Okay.
there's no reason. I don't know why we couldn't just say, if you want to place a complaint, oh, sorry, I'm using my voice for Jax.
I don't think you need it.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason that if we can just put, if you have a complaint, hit here and then somebody can just triage them from there. We can also say, what's your complaint based off of it? But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's really.
But the intent
Yeah.
was for the ordinance side.
Correct.
So we could simply set it up, say, here's,
Absolutely.
we're
say
an
why not.
ordinance, non-ordinances / other, and, okay,
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
this is a good idea. We could extend out
Yep.
in other ways.
Yep, we just need to make it, I mean, we all know how to get in touch with the township but some people don't, or it's intimidating and they don't feel like picking up the phone and calling so we just need to make it easier. Yep, absolutely.
Good, thanks.
Other questions?
I guess I just want to say, I was on the committees and witnessed the committees more. These guys have got close to 20 meetings over the last year, gathering facts, meeting with county, site reviews, going out and looking at what the problems have been. And they put in place a structure so this won't happen again. And the software is going to be recording everything, so the documents will be found just a few clicks. So it's a major upgrade from where we've been. And I really want to say thanks for all your hard work. You guys
Well-
did good.
Yeah, I'd like to say too, it's also to protect the township employees, right? Checks and balances, keep them covered as well. Hey, I followed the procedure, right? It's to protect them as well.
Ms.
Go ahead, John.
Ms. Supervisor, I understand, we've been doing some comparison of wages and compensation, whatnot. And I understand that our planning commission is way undervalued compared to some of our surrounding townships. That might be something that you guys look at, compensation being upgraded so that it's more current and modern with our surrounding communities.
Don't get your hopes up. It's still not that good, but we can double it and
We can kick you up to $9 an hour.
as long as you don't meet too often.
I'd just like to say that I'm glad that township staff were in on this
Mhm.
process. Especially Ben and Brian, that was great. Because, we got immediate responses to a lot of issues, and concerns that, came to the forefront right away that we needed to address.
And that's only proper because these two guys are right in the fire. I
Yeah.
mean, every time a complaint, concern, or question, and maybe not even a complaint, comes in the township office, guess who desks it lands on? It's Ben's or Brian's.
Yeah.
So you're smart for including them.
I also would like to say these guys have met like close to 20 times in committee. $0 for all of that effort. And I think that's shame on us to have these people work for free for all that. Plus they're doing, the planning commission now is working on another committee, which is dealing with the wormies, which kind of started that issue. And they've been working through that and putting together another plan of process. So there's multiple meetings that they get paid $0 for, and I just don't think that's fair. So another one to keep in mind.
Well, I don't go for the money. I haven't even filled out my W-2, so probably won't. But
Just put it out there.
thank you.
You guys have worked so hard. It's just fantastic. The process that we desperately needed, especially with all of our growth and development pressures. Just couldn't thank you more.
You know, every time I drive down 28th Street and see all the new construction, I'm just proud. I point it out to the wife every time we go down there. New car dealership, new car wash, you know, and those are all projects that I voted on, and I'm proud of them. I mean, they look great. And as an architect, I think they're handsome buildings and welcome additions to our community here. So glad to participate.
Happy to have, we appreciate it. Cascade residents sure benefit from all this hard work.
Thank you.
Did you have something?
Yeah, this was all, I mean, I'll just kudos and ditto to what everybody said. Regarding the BSNA software, because it sounds like it's a really excellent package, and the building department obviously uses it extensively. And it's probably got I forgot, Alan, if it's you or Ben, or who was a programmer, had some programming background. Probably Ben, okay, that's what I thought. But my assumption is it's somewhat like a document management system, and I know the building department deals with thousands of documents. And Brian Wilson was concerned about there not being any, you know, way to maybe cause some conflict. So are we going to have it set up, as far as you know, so there's a separate area for the planning department and zoning to put their documentation in? Because some of these are the same projects. And it sounds like Brian was concerned about maybe some overlap of documents being put in, follow-on documents being put in. Has that been designed yet, Ben, you know?
Right, if I answer that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the nice thing about this, you know, typically when we buy a new or want to do something new with BSNA, we have to buy a new module, right? So we maintain about 12 different modules of BSNA. The nice thing about this is that it's actually PZE, Planning, Zoning, and Enforcement, is actually a part of the building BSNA program, so we don't have to buy the new program, which is the good part. I thought the committee did an excellent job. They actually invited Brian Wilson to the meeting where we talked about this extensively and tried to work out some of those issues. Interestingly enough, I don't think there was really any conflicts in regards to, you know, the conflict between the building department files and the PZ&E files, because it is a completely separate module underneath, you know, so we're just not using it right now. The problem is that, without getting in the weeds too much, we were really interested in the part of the process where you couldn't move through the process until you had clicked certain radio buttons, right? So you couldn't do this part until you had finished this part, couldn't do that until you finished the part before, which really, you know, exacerbates the checks and balances to make sure you're not getting ahead of yourself. But I mean, we all know our building department does work for 6 other communities as well, and they won't necessarily be going through that process. So all of that is just a story to tell that Brian's going to be intricately involved when we start populating all of our databases and putting the process in place to make sure that it doesn't cause any conflict in this department.
Well, and it sounds like you described it. There's a segmentation within the software between PZ, the planning and zoning, and the buildings, and that's really right.
It's its own separate workflow. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. And he's going to be, right, like Ben said, Brian's going to be involved in building workflow. So I mean, it's going to affect him and his team. So
You think this will help him as he ultimately make his job easier? Not
it's
easier,
going to
but
add to his
process.
job, right? But it's going to, what it's going to do,
Long term.
it's going to be able, he's going to be able to look at a project and say, hey guys, how come this isn't checked? How come that's not checked? Where are we at on this? Who's doing this, right? I mean, we all do it in our own personal lives. If you don't have a calendar and you don't check it every hour, I mean, right? Emails, everything. So it's just going to allow him to kind of, and we talked about building a dashboard too, that he could look at all the open projects and see where everything's at. So it's just a one-page dashboard that helps him say, hey, wait a minute, I got to check on that. We'll dig down deeper.
What about staff? So we've got Planner Hillbrands, the new zoning, Madison.
Who's been great.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah, she's been great.
potential engineer in-house would
Mhm.
save us a lot, but
Oh.
do you, from your perspective, do we need anything else? Ben, I know, like, don't look at
To hear
Ben.
what they have to say.
Look
Well,
straight
I
ahead.
guess my thing is, let's see how, I mean, I don't know, right? Like, let's roll this out. Let's get the training. Let's have the team play with it for 6 months. And then if Ben says, listen, we found some gaps or we need something more, then I think we look at it then. I'd rather move a little slow on on the cheap, then
Yeah.
just throw money at it.
Well, and then the more, it's really great having your eyes on it. Planner Hillbrands has the great personality trait of, sure, I can do it, and just taking more on, which is great, but
Yeah.
and he does a fantastic job. He doesn't complain.
Yeah. So we really have to trust Ben and Brian and even Madison to some extent to say if it's not working, or we need to do something different, or we need to add on, you know?
Yeah. And there, I mean, there is another person in there as well, Maddie. Yes, we did hire 2 people in the planning department, one Madison and one Maddie. But Maddie is now their assistant, and she'll be doing some of that baseline input as well. So I agree with Alan. It looks like on paper, the staff is appropriate to execute the plan. But I think it's certainly something, 6-month review, a year review as we're into it, just to make sure that we aren't missing anything.
Then it probably should be, even if everything's good, it probably should be a yearly review, because I mean, township changes, right, every year. So
Do you feel like we've got it covered for stormwater process? Enforcement?
Well, I do believe that you need a civil engineer on staff. I strongly recommend that. I do think Madison has been a good addition.
Yeah.
And she sat in on 2 or 3 of our meetings and made several comments, which were very welcome.
I think she's used this software before too.
She has.
I think she had,
Good,
yeah.
good.
So
And we've got a new person on the website. That has been an ongoing complaint. Accessibility and user friendliness of the website. So we've got a new point person for that.
it's pretty
Doesn't, but it'll be better.
bad. Yeah. It's just not friendly. Easy.
We don't want to be too welcoming. A little intimidating.
Any other questions?
Fantastic
Thanks so
job.
much, guys.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Public comments. Now's the time for anything on the agenda and or to speak about anything on tonight's agenda.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, I had called and they had said that the agenda could be done before and after. And my wife and I have childcare till 8. My promise is it will be less than 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
But it's not related to anything. So my name is Tom Grias, 6677 Burger Drive. 3 years ago, I was on the bike path committee, so it has the bike path committee. And I remember talking to John about this. So I'm switching streams here, but I just wanted to keep the water kind of flowing on this. It's been great what we've all done in increasing the bike paths. And one path that I was recommending was between Thorn Hills and Thornapple River Drive. I'm sorry, between Thorn Hills and Cascade Road on Thornapple River Drive. So it's a very dangerous path. It connected businesses to parks, houses to parks. It had all the qualifications, but it was very expensive. It was the #1 path that was recommended by our Survey Monkey that was done, but because of expense, it was not approved. And the reason I'm here is I know that we're getting the water in that area, and I see all the flags up. And what just to keep the waters flowing, I'm wondering, and again, I'm not a professional, I'm a general dentist in Caledonia, so I know nothing about anything but except for teeth. But even if we could widen the shoulder just a little bit in that area, and I don't know if that's planned or not, because my wife and I were just riding, from downtown to our house, and we were thinking just a little bit if they could, because I know the bike path, it may be in the future, but the cost was a big issue. But if even we could extend that little shoulder by a foot or 2 or 3, it would help the bikers just to be a little more safe and to connect homes to businesses, connect homes to parks, schools. I mean, it had all the right things, but it was just a cost. So that's all I want to say. I'm sorry so just to keep it flowing. And I know I spoke to John about that like 2 or 3 years ago when this whole thing happened. So
No, we appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks. Anything you want to
guys.
add, Ben, or?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'll take note of it. So, unfortunately, it probably doesn't it doesn't combine with the project. A lot of the water main is actually going to be drilled, so there won't be any open cutting or anything. But the hope is that when the project is done, we'll be redoing the roads in the neighborhood as well. And that might be an opportunity to look at an expanded shoulder or something like that.
Yeah, just a few feet would help just for security and safety, but in the path, maybe in the future. So
And look at
Thank
the
you.
website too, because the pathway committees or the pathway that committee that was just reformed,
they
there will
were,
be
okay.
meetings starting soon on the
Oh, I
website,
would love to join again.
open to the public.
Oh,
and-
nice.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
Please attend those.
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Okay.
And I think just a coattail on his comments, that's something that we didn't look at was just widening the shoulder, similar to like what we have on Laraway, which isn't ideal, but it's better than nothing.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's a great
It is a
idea.
tight.
It's so, yeah, it's so tight and it's so fast. It was very scenic too, you know, it's a nice little area to ride. So, okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Anyone else in person or virtually?
If any one of our Zoom participants would like to make a public comment about an agenda item, please raise your hand. If you're joining us via phone, please dial *9 and we'll wait one moment, Supervisor. Doesn't look like anyone has any comments, Supervisor.
Okay, that concludes this portion, and we'll have one more at the end of the following tonight's business. Next up, approval of the consent agenda. Is there discussion or a motion?
I got just a comment. One of the things that I'm going to bring up later
Mhm.
involves the Cascade Historical Society building. But other than that, I make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
There's support?
Support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have no financial actions tonight. So that brings us to unfinished business. First, item 037-2022. This is the acceptance of the fiscal year 2021 audit and comprehensive annual financial report.
So we left this off. The board asked Mr. Redveld to review the Plant Moran audit prior to the township board considering the acceptance of the audit. So Mr. Redveld did have access to that and reviewed it, sent an email back to myself and Supervisor Les Prince and Township Attorney. Said that after reading through the forensic report draft, there'll be no impact on our financial statement audit as presented. So all the information is the same. It is in final form now. You know, the township board technically doesn't have to approve the audit in order for it to be submitted to the state. You know, that would be an easy way for us to prevent a bad audit from going to the state. So in order to meet the required deadline, it has been submitted to the state, so it is in draft format. So the requested action tonight is basically just acceptance of the fiscal year 2021 audit and comprehensive annual financial report.
I move to approve the audit.
Support.
Discussion?
Just a discussion. Mr. Treasurer, you're the groundskeeper of the nickels and dimes. You okay with this? You okay with the audit and approving the audit?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
And I just wanted to add that I think it was very well done. I spent hours going through it. It's very comprehensive, and I loved his summary that he gave us in this. It shows that we're really in a really good position, which is a good thing.
That's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. 039-2022, resolution authorizing the issuance of 2022 capital improvement bonds. And this is for the fire station project.
Correct. So just to recap, again, this is something that we first started talking about at the last board meeting. But at the May 11th Township Board meeting, the fire department design team, Williams Architects and Triangle Construction presented the design development documents and updated estimated budget for the Fire Station 1 project. So at that meeting, the Township Board authorized the construction document development bidding phase of the project which will culminate in the review and consideration of bids for the project in August or early September. It's anticipated that construction will commence early fall. It'll take approximately 1 year, depending on our material procurement times. So the board has indicated that bonds will be issued as part of the funding for the project. So to this end, the board already adopted a resolution of intent to issue bonds, as well as approving professional service agreements for bond counsel and financial advisory services. The next step in the process is adoption of the resolution authorizing the issuance of the 2022 capital improvement bonds. So the resolution, just like the intent's been drafted with the full initial budgetary amount, 9.8 million, to include, to allow the township board the greatest amount of latitude when deciding what the final bond amount term should be. So the township supervisor and the township treasurer, and I'll get to that in a second, are designated as the authorized officer to make the final determination once the final project cost is reasonably known and the final amortization analysis has been conducted. So the proposal schedule calls for the final sizing of the bonds to be determined the week of August 8th. The staff will work with the financial advisors to prepare various bonding amortization schedules. And we'll be back to the township board at our next meeting to review those to pick up bond sizing. So the resolution spells out bonding details as required by the Public Act, contains quite a bit of information. If the township board does choose to issue the bonds and accept bids, it's anticipated the transaction will take place in late summer 2022. And then once the bonds are sold, township has 3 years to complete the projects that were bonded for. So at the last board meeting, there were a couple of questions that were brought up. The first was on starting on page 7 and going on to page 8, the construction fund. So there was, this basically says what the funds, the bond proceeds can be used for. There was a sentence that said any unexpected balance shall be used for such purposes allowed by law. And then the next sentence says any monies remaining in the construction fund after payment of all such costs shall be transferred to the bond payment fund. So I talked to our bond counsel and they're fine with removing that sentence. Any unexpended balance shall be used for such purposes as allowed by law. So by passing this resolution, if there's money in the construction fund that isn't used for the construction of the fire department, it gets transferred to the bond payment fund and is used to pay the bonds. And then the second question we had was on page 9, the authorized officer. There was a question about whether or not it should be the clerk or the treasurer. Our bond counsel was happy with it being the treasurer, and also was okay removing the or either one of them acting alone. So the authorized officer will be both of them signing in tandem. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Then are we still on track and for temporarily moving the fire department down to their rental location?
So I had a conversation with Chief about that earlier this week, and they are ready to move whenever they are told to move.
Okay.
They're going to stay in the current station as long as possible, just because it's a better response location. But as soon as the contractor gives us the word, they'll be moved out. It'll take like a week. And then we are actually working with the library to come up with a staging room here. We'll keep a rescue vehicle and a couple firefighters here during the daytime, just so we can continue to have the response time from this area rather than the response
Township
time.
office. Good plan.
That's a really good idea.
Do you want a motion, Ms. Supervisor? Make a motion to authorize the issuance of the capital improvement bonds for the new fire station.
Support.
That's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald to authorize the issuance of the 2022 capital improvement bonds. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Motion carried. Article 9, new business. It's labeled, it's numbered 041. Does it matter if we?
We can change it now to be
Okay.
correct.
So we'll call the 040.
So the numbers for the unfinished business were from the last agenda, so we had 040 at our last meeting.
Thank you.
Right.
Good catch, Ben.
Item 041, 2022. Thank you. This is the resolution to defer the summer tax payment without penalty for some qualifying taxpayers.
This is basically just a housekeeping item. So the township's required to approve this each year if they want to allow for deferment of summer tax payments for people that qualify.
Ken, is there any big change this year from last year on those deferments? Okay, so about the same, give or take a couple.
We don't get any requests, so we just do it in case there is one at some point. And really, the only thing that changes is the income level at which you can qualify.
Understood why we don't get a lot of requests.
What is the income level, Ben? For household?
So it's, I don't know what it is offhand. It's published every year by the federal government, and it's based on the number of people in your household.
40, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right about 40.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the resolution to defer the taxes without penalty for summer tax payment.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by clerk Slater, to approve the resolution as stated. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee Shipley.
Yes.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
Slater, yes, Supervisor Lesperance.
Yes, motion carries. 042, 2022, the Grand Rapids Triathlon for next year, 2023.
Thank you. So triathlon was held approximately a month ago, June 11 and 12, 2022, in Ada and Cascade. For the last 2 years, this has been a 2-day event, which has allowed the participants to spread out throughout the event. And the feedback on the 2-day event remains positive. And the organizers are currently receiving requests to sign up for the 2023 event, which is why we're here tonight. And really, it's just to approve the dates for 2023 at this point of June 10 and 11. And the organizers will be back either later this year or early next year with the resolutions for the road closures for the event. John Conkling is here tonight. He is one of the race organizers. He's happy to answer any questions that you may have. But really just looking for approval of those dates for 2023.
Comments?
Yes.
I'll tell you, as a person that lives in the middle of the event, I didn't know what was happening this year. I mean, your scheduling of moving it out to 2 days is phenomenal what it does for the residents of the area. So kudos to your group for doing that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's all I have.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the request to hold the Grand Rapids Triathlon on June 10 and 11,
Support.
2023.
So that's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley, to approve the dates for the 2023 Grand Rapids Triathlon. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks for coming
Thank
tonight.
you very much. Appreciate it.
Item 043, 2022. The Grand Valley Metro Council Stormwater Permit Compliance.
So we have traditionally participated in the El Groves Regional Stormwater Administration Program. So we always sign up for, or we have in the past signed up for 3-year contracts, and they help us with all of our compliance with our NPDES MS4 stormwater permit. So the agreement is up again. This agreement would run from August 1st, 2022 to September 30th of 2025, which would constitute the 3 years. We've had excellent luck with helping us with our compliance items and our reporting items. The dues for the township would be just shy of $12,000 a year, and it's about a $1,000 increase from our last 3-year agreement.
Ben, has there been any concerns or negativism, any issues with them?
There have not been, and we have not had any violations, so.
Well, I know that when we first started discussing this, I was one of those people that said, I don't need Big Brother breathing down my neck. But Ben, if you say that it's been good for the township and we haven't had any issues with that organization, then I guess I don't have any issues either.
What does it give us to like to a member of the public who doesn't know anything specific? What does it give us that not using them we'd be without?
So we have this permit because we have a municipal storm water system. So we're required, just like the 26 other entities listed, to apply for and receive this MPDES permit. And part of that permit, we have multiple requirements for public education and cleaning and all of this stuff that we have to do, developing our ordinances. So essentially what we do is that, we all pool our resources together and all the communities hire Algro to do that work for us instead of all of the communities having individual employees that are doing it in individual places.
And this is communities who use the municipal water system?
The stormwater system.
Stormwater.
So the municipalities that have a stormwater system and meet certain jurisdictional and population issues. So I imagine this list is going to be growing soon. You'll notice there's a lot of big communities in the Kent County area that aren't on there right now, but have probably surpassed some of those benchmarks the past couple of years.
Ms. Supervisor, when we talked about this originally, it was brought up that a lot of our immediate surrounding communities are involved in this. So it behooves us to kind of get in step with it. And if there's nothing overly ripe about this agreement, then I guess it's okey dokey.
I think overall, like you said, John, it helps, the general explanation is it helps with compliance. And the compliance issues are always very stringent and difficult, and it would be very expensive for us to try to meet all those compliance issues and do all the monitoring and the measurements that we have to without cooperation and in participation with all the other communities. So that's why it brings the price way down for us, and it is beneficial to the residents in terms of helping us meet the compliance, which we tightened this year with the new regulations for stormwater management. And as we know, it's one of the biggest issues we've had. And so, yeah, I agree that it's a good thing.
And this thing kind of centered around originally, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, the river communities, because all the stormwater ultimately dumps into the Thornapple and the Grand.
How long
Yeah,
have we
so
been?
in order to have a stormwater permit, you have to have a system that empties into a body of water of the state. So
Why is Forest Hills Public Schools on there?
because they have enough facilities that have their own, basically if they have a catch basin in their parking lot, they have then developed a stormwater system.
And they've got big parking lots.
What about the airport?
The airport has their stormwater program is regulated by the federal government.
I make a motion to approve the agreement for the Grand Valley Metro Council participation in the stormwater permit compliance.
Support.
It's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Kessel, to approve the stormwater permit compliance cooperative effort as stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 044-2022, submittals for the Kent County ARPA funding. Manager Swayze?
Great. I apologize that this was not in the packet. I was still waiting for some final numbers to put in here, but we talked about this a couple meetings ago. The Kent County has launched a website to assist in determining how the county ARPA funds should be allocated. The website's kentcountyarpa.com. According to the website, the Kent County has identified 5 areas of interest for their ARPA funds: community health, quality of life, infrastructure, economic innovations and workforce development, and improving governmental operations. So there was a priorities and ideas survey available on the website that closed at the beginning of July. And the county is accepting ARPA funds proposals until this Friday. In the report here, just have a little schedule of their process. So at the June board meeting, we held a discussion regarding potential projects to submit for consideration with ARPA funds. And based on those discussions and previous project conversations, we've come up with a couple projects being recommended for possible submittal. First one is the Alaska Ridge Internet Extension, which will fit into the infrastructure area. That project would extend broadband internet service to the Alaska Ridge neighborhood, which is currently unserved. The project's estimated roundly at $300,000. Funding split could be Comcast $25,000, which they've previously committed to, $75,000 of Cascade Township ARPA funds, and $200,000 of Kent County ARPA funds. Second item is the Cascade Library outdoor gardens and activity space. So the library came and gave a presentation to the township board on this project a couple months ago. We're currently in the process of collecting feedback from the community on the plans via a survey, and that information will be provided to the township in August. So the cost of the project is approximately $625,000, including 2 years of maintenance. And the funding split for that could be the Cascade Friends of the Library, $200,000, which they've already committed to for phase 1 of the project, and Kent County ARPA funds at $425,000. Third project we talked about was the Cascade Road Bridge pedestrian improvements. So the project would improve pedestrian safety on the bridge over Cascade Road over Thornapple River by expanding the pedestrian non-motorized travel lanes and providing physical separation between the motorized and non-motorized facilities. So myself and Supervisor Lesperance had a chance to meet with Wayne Harrell from the county about a month ago, and they were interested in helping us prepare plans for that project. They think it's definitely doable. The idea would essentially be to cut down the raised walkways on either side right now, expand it out a couple feet on each side, and then put a barrier between the vehicle travel lane and the non-motorized travel lane. So very roundly, he estimated the cost at $300,000 per side. That funding could be requested 100% from Kent County ARPA funds, or the township could consider poking in some of our ARPA funds as well. So as I mentioned, I think all three projects fit in one of the categories. The outdoor gathering activity space would fall squarely under the quality of life category. The Cascade Road Bridge pedestrian improvements could fall under both quality of life and infrastructure, and the Alaska Ridge broadband project would fall under the infrastructure category. There's really no cost to apply for funding. I've got everything drafted up, so I can submit it tomorrow. But we should be prepared to commit funding to the projects as noted in the report, should the projects be selected for partial ARPA funding. With that, looking for an authorization for me to complete the application for Kent County funding on the noted projects.
Got it. Go ahead.
Well, I was at the meeting where we decided which one of these things we were going to go with, and we decided not to overdo our asking. And we had it at 2. I was wondering how we got a third one in there for $625,000. I think that would jeopardize our safety bridge, or if we're being a little greedy there, being that there's every government entity in the county is going to be seeking this money.
Yeah, so really all I did was come up with projects that we had been talking about. I thought it was prudent to bring that one to the township board because we had talked about that at a previous meeting, but if the township board just wants to submit 1 or 2 instead of all 3, that's why we're here to discuss it.
Go ahead, Jim.
I would just like to do 2, the Cascade Bridge and the internet.
Let's look at this. Then can we prioritize when we submit that request? Say this is number 1, and number 2, and number 3?
So I don't think that there is any, so I've been through the application a couple of times. I don't think there's any space to prioritize items, but we could use one of the open-ended sections. The other thing we could do is ask, if we're interested in the library one, but more interested in the other ones, we can ask the library to submit the project or the Friends of the Library to submit the project.
I don't have any issue with the library. I'm very proud of our library. But I think that since we're still gathering information back from plans from the community, I think that should fall to number 3. Number 1, we've heard loud and strong about the bridge over the river. And certainly we've heard loud and strong about the infrastructure.
What happens if we submit all 3? Is it likely that they would cut funding back on one or the other?
No idea.
Do you know who's making the decision? I mean, what body of?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it'll be the Kent County Board of Commissioners that'll make that, but there's, they have a subcommittee of staff and commissioners that are looking at the projects that are submitted. I don't know who's on that committee.
But our ARPA funds, I can't remember the total, 2 million,
About $2.1 million.
2.1 million.
So our chance of getting all these approved is probably kind of slim.
Does the county take that into consideration? Do you know?
They haven't indicated that. You have to remember too that, you know, this is the program for submitting project ARPA isn't just local governments doing it, right? So you're gonna have all sorts of organizations, you're gonna have individuals saying, hey, you should just give everybody, you know, in the county $100. So the application isn't just limited to local municipalities.
I think all 3 are worthy, but I don't want to jeopardize 2 of them by throwing a 3rd one in there.
I do agree with Timmy. You don't want to dilute your chances. by-
And but does it? We don't know.
Does it? Yeah.
That's what we don't know.
I think we ought to do one, the
Yeah.
one we talked about, the internet.
I just want to ask, John, 2.1 million, use that figure. That's the whole county or is that just Cascade?
So Cascade Township got $2.1 million in ARPA funds.
Right.
Kent County got $157 million in ARPA funds.
Right, so they have a big pool.
Should we all do 2?
And so if we submit all 3, do they choose the 1, 2, or 3 or 0?
So
Or do they just say, okay, we're going to give you $1 million, do with it as you wish, and then it comes back and we can make the decision, okay, we want to do 1 and 3.
So they haven't indicated that that is the process. Basically, what they've said is all ideas and proposals will be reviewed by an internal team and then submitted to the Board of Commissioners for review and consideration.
So with that language, it seems to me we could submit all 3. We get the money and then we decide what to do with it. With those 3, meaning we could use some of the money to fund each one and then use other of our own funds to finish funding it. Or we could say, okay, we'll take what we got from the county and do just number 1 and 3 with it.
I wouldn't necessarily see it that way because we're submitting projects. Their committee may decide, hey, we're really focused on broadband and we like this broadband project, so we're going to give you $200,000. That wouldn't allow the township the latitude to turn around and say, oh, thanks for the $200,000, but we like this project better. We're going to do that.
Right, but what if they said, we like the broadband project, we're going to give you $500,000. The broadband only takes what? 200, it's 75 of our own, takes 200 of that, Kent County ARPA. Then does the other 300 would have to go to one of the other 2 projects then, wouldn't it?
But we're putting what the cost is on the project, so they're not going to give us 500.
There hasn't been any indication that they're just going to give. So when we had the CARES Act funds, you know, they decided that, yep, we're just going to take this portion of the CARES Act funds and we're going to give it to these municipalities and they're going to decide what they're do with that. There's been no indication that that's the process this year. So what they've decided with the ARPA funds is that they want individuals to submit projects for consideration. So my guess would be, and again, they may go during the CARES Act process, they went in a couple different directions, even if they said what direction they were going. My guess would be is that they're going to look at it on a project to project basis, not on a basis where they would just hand the township a pool of money and say, fund one of your projects.
Should we be lobbying our county commissioner to work on our projects?
Yes.
Yeah. Sure.
Should have invited her tonight.
Invited her, maybe.
Right?
I'll text her. What does ARPA stand for, Ben, for the people who don't know where the money's coming from? That really we don't have.
American Recovery and Act.
I know it's an American Recovery P Act. I know.
Something.
Public Act or I can't remember. But you're right, American.
So this is related to COVID funds that started at the federal level, then state, trickled down to county,
Correct.
sitting there, and now we're all gonna submit. We're all gonna hold our hands out.
Yeah, that sounded a little.
In terms of 3 projects, does it,
Oh, the
For lack of-
American Rescue Plan Act.
Oh, it is American Rescue.
does it make it look, for lack of a better term, that we're being well-rounded and we're trying to touch a lot of these things that are a need in terms of trying to satisfy several needs, I guess is what I'm trying to say, by applying for 3.
And there are going to be communities, like when we went through the CARES. So the CARES Act started like this process as well, where the county said, hey, we've got this pool of money. Local municipalities tell us what you want to do. And at that time, the dollar amount was a lot less. It was like $50 million. And the city of Grand Rapids applied for like $300 million worth of funding. So there's some communities or organizations that are just going to throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. You know, there are some communities or individuals or organizations that are going to be very detailed about what they put in because they, to Timmy's point, you know, they want to make sure that the top priorities get funded. It's going to be all over the place.
Mm.
So, and I don't have any insight into how the committee is going to review the applications.
So just looking at this from a number standpoint, Kent County has $127 million. There's about, what, 30 municipalities, if we include the city of Grand Rapids, city of Lowell, city of Rockford, they're not townships, about 30 municipalities. So if everybody, and some Grand Rapids are much bigger than us, they may ask for 20 million, we may ask for 2 million. They may get 20 and we may get 500,000, right?
Yeah.
So I'd assume they probably have some objective criteria, but in the long run, it's a subjective decision by those committees of what they fund for each municipality. Is that probably what you think they're going to go through?
And then just remember too, that it's not just municipalities, you know, so you know, Forgotten Harvest is going to apply. You know, all the nonprofits are going to apply, YMCA is going to apply, you know, Bob from down the street is going to apply. There's no limitation as to who can.
It's
apply
not
to
just,
these.
okay, that's good to know.
The Wormies on Whitneyville Road,
Yeah, or maybe
they've only gotten 2 grants so far. They probably can.
Well, we didn't include pathways and parks and fire, you know, equipment and engines and stuff like that in there either. We kept the list short for a reason, I think.
Yeah, we did.
So each county commissioner is gonna, in theory, their job is to represent their constituency. So hopefully it gets.
To you, does our submission, as we've all in here, look reasonable? I mean, do you think we're going to look better if we say we just want 1 and 3? I know it's, yeah, you can't say, it. Who knows what, I'm sorry, it's an unfair question.
You know,
Should we
unfair
hire a
question.
lobbyist? Should we hire a short-term
Yeah, seriously.
cheap lobbyist?
You know, again, you know, maybe the solution is, you know, I can go back and talk to Vanessa and Friends of the Library and maybe they submit the project for the
I think
the
that's,
garden area. That way, you know, it's kind of spreading it over a couple different organizations.
I think
We
it's a
can
good
be
idea.
included as a partner in their project rather than them being included as a partner in our project.
That way it would not endanger any of the projects.
I think that'd be a great idea, have them stand alone on it.
Unless KDL has their own set of projects and they don't want to screw up those.
Rock, here's another rock for your backpack.
Just make it happen, Ben.
So does that sound like a plan then?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess, so we would need a motion just because this
I
is.
make a motion to submit the 2 projects as we talked about with recommendation for the library to submit their project separately.
support.
It's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald to approve the submission of the pedestrian and biker bridge over the Thornapple River on Cascade Road, the high-speed internet for Alaska Ridge Internet, and then push the 3rd project over to the KDL to submit. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Question.
Too late for questions.
Is it possible that the Friends of the Library could apply?
So it is possible, yeah. So, but probably what I'll do is have a conversation tomorrow with Vanessa and somebody from the Friends and figure out the best way to do that. But yeah.
Because they have their plans drawn up, they have a little bit of money to put with it. That may be the best option then.
I would agree.
Thank you. Don?
Thanks, Ben. Do you know how soon we may hear back?
So on the schedule, they say that their committees meeting June, July, and August. In July, August, September, the Board of Commissioners will begin appropriating ARPA funds for projects. So knowing the county, that probably means 2 years from now.
We'll save questions for later. Thank you. How about the next item, 045, the Interurban Transit Partnership?
Right, so this is the sorry, just a minute, lost my spot. This is the contract for the 33rd, 36th Street route. So you recall that the 28th Street route has been turned over to the DDA. Currently, the DDA is paying 100% the cost of that route. The 33rd, 36th Street route is not in the DDA and they are not able to fund it. So the 36th Street route goes north on Patterson, east on 33rd Street, south on Craft, west on 36th, and then south on Patterson, where it goes south to the airport. It is peak periods only, 15 trips daily, and weekdays only. So for the fiscal year 22-23 contract, which would run from August 29, 2022 to actually August 27 of 2023, there was an update there. The proposed cost is $39,069.76. That's calculated as 48 billable hours at $75.71 per hour in fiscal year 22 and 464 billable hours at $76.37 per hour for fiscal year 23. And those fiscal year references are the Rapids fiscal years, not the Township's fiscal years. The agreement's the same that has been approved to the Township in previous years, with the exception of the rate charged and minor language revisions. The contract is based on service hours for the line haul service, but the paratransit service is included as well, no matter the usage. The paratransit service applies to any individual that qualifies for the service and lives within 3/4 miles of the line haul route. The paratransit service is less of a benefit for the 36th Street route than the 28th Street route due to the very limited residential area in the 3/4 mile service area. As I mentioned, it's not a full service route. It doesn't run on the same schedule as the rest of the rapid system. The service was designed in consultation with the businesses on the route to correspond to shift changes at the businesses. It operates weekday peak periods, 5 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. And that is 15 trips per day. So I will note that the DDA has put together a little transportation committee to look at alternatives for the 28th Street route, not only with the rapid ITP, but potentially other services as well. My thought is that whatever ideas they come up with could eventually be translated to this service as well. So we'll keep that in mind. I would also note that while the contract is a year contract, we are able to get out of it at any point with 3 months notice.
What's the ridership, Ben? Is that going up, down, staying about the same?
It is going down. So the ridership rapid wide is about 60 to 65% of what it was before the pandemic. And this route reflects that as well.
But we don't know how many people other than percentage wise.
Was anything attached? I didn't see any data attached to the packet.
There was not any.
That's why I asked, yeah.
Yeah,
that's a
that
good-
was my question too, Jim.
I mean, I guess without that data, I'm wondering whether it's still worthwhile or whether it's the ridership has declined so much that we shouldn't renew it. I don't know. Is this something we can defer until we get that data?
Not at this point.
But we can drop out of it at any time.
Correct.
And if the Rapid doesn't play ball with us, we'll take our ball and go home.
They haven't played ball.
I know that.
We just keep giving them the ball. What's the backstory? When did this start?
this predates me. It actually predates the rapid. So this was back when, and I'll ask trustee Shipley what the name of it was, because he's brought it up before.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it.
Transit.
Well, this dates back to, you guys probably remember Brian Courier sitting on the board. And Brian Courier's good with numbers, a lot like Jim, and he figured it up. He says, X number of people. He said, we can buy everybody that rides that bus a brand new car every other year and be cheaper than what the rapid costs us. And of course, that was quickly poo-pooed off, but
$39,000.
I don't want to be asked to, I want data. This came up last week. Ben, this isn't on you, but I thought Sandra would, she's the economic development director. You can't put something in front of the board without giving them any background. We don't even know.
is it?
Have we reached out to the businesses?
So Cascade Engineering constantly comes to us and asks for us to increase the service. We've basically told them that if they want to make that request, they need to go in front of the township board.
But they're not here. I haven't heard a peep from them.
But
I'm
it
not
was- it was
I'm not
designed
approving
specifically
anything.
around the shift changes for Cascade Engineering and the businesses that are in that, on that floor.
I mean,
So
you
is-
want to help businesses, especially right now. It's also, but it's frustrating being asked to approve something with zero data and
So we can, I agree that we should all see data. But we can get out of it with a 3 months notice. Can we get back into it?
of course, it's the rapid. They're just doing money grabs.
I know,
all
but I
over
want
the
to ask.
county.
Trace, I don't think-
Chances are if we let it drop and seeing how some of their agreements have been in the past, we let it drop, they're gonna charge us a higher fee to get back in.
I guarantee, let's call, please give us the opportunity to see if that happens. I don't think they will. One phone call when Ben and I had a meeting with them and I questioned them and pushed back on the bus service on 28th Street and it dropped by $200,000. They were charging us as if they got a new bus out, drove it from downtown to here, and then went in Cascade. And all they're doing is extending it on 28th Street from Kentwood.
So what you're saying, Grace, is if
That we are, the
that
rapid,
they may come back with the same or lower.
let's find out. The township hasn't done any negotiating, in my opinion, and we've paid quite well to the rapid.
And their previous name was Greta.
Question.
That's right. They're trying to.
Have we looked at any alternatives like the Uber? And it sounds like there's only about 12 or 15 people that are doing this. Are there any other alternatives to
It
this?
sounds like
Wheels to
DDA is
work.
already looking into that.
Okay,
Maybe we ought to say, hey, we're gonna put this all on hold for now. Till DDA comes back and they may have some options that are just too good to ignore.
Here's my concern, or yes, and the DDA they've done a good job on starting to look at alternative methods. Since becoming the supervisor, this is like classic, we can always terminate with 3 months notice. But what always happens is it comes to us with minimal data. The rapid threatens a month before the expiration date, the rapid threatens to terminate it. The township jumps, pays, it's just like this pattern of, well, we could always terminate it, but we never do. And I just can't, I think that is such a inefficient, I'm all for public transportation and helping businesses, but I feel like Cascade is just, the benefit is not there.
I think it would be fiscally irresponsible for us to go forward unless we got more information.
Don't
Data,
ask us to
whatever.
spend taxpayer money without any data behind it. If Cascade Engineering wants to show up, they're free to show up. I haven't
Maybe
heard
they'll
from them.
have data.
Well, the rapid gives data, but they count getting on and getting off as two riders. It's impossible to decipher. Ben, this isn't on you, but our economic development director should have all this background for us. This is what we pay her very well for. We look stupid.
Well,
We look foolish as a board.
I love Cascade Engineering, but I don't think it's our responsibility to pay to get their employees there.
Nope. Unless then what are we gonna do? Start paying for no, we're a township. This is
So-
tax dollars. I'm
We
not
need-
doing
We
it.
need some data. I think I'd just like to stop this right here till we get more data.
If people have to, if there's a need, then they'll squeal and we'll hear it. In the meantime, Cascade Engineering is responsible for Cascade Engineering, and people pay taxes to receive services, not to pay for private businesses supplements.
You're not wrong.
I'm just tired of the Rapid calling the shots and Cascade, it's just a money grab. Watch, I'll be wrong and they'll come back and squeal and talk about how much they need it. But I'd love to see someone talk about an actual need instead of threaten to end it.
I guess I'll make a motion that we not enter into the agreement between the Interurban Transit Partnership and Cascade Township for line haul and on services on 36th and 32nd Street.
Pending further data or information.
I'll just support your motion to end it. And if someone wants to come back and ask for it with some data, we're happy to entertain it. But does that change the motion you made?
He just made a motion to not enter, so we'll take a vote, and if you say yes, that's a no.
Supervisor LaFrance seconds your motion. That's a motion by trustee Nordhook to decline the services, supported by Supervisor LaFrance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll have to wait. They can always come back.
Ben, could we ask though, we would like to get the data, if the Rapid would give us that?
Certainly.
Mr. Rowland, we need you on negotiations with the Rapid, someone with a backbone. I bet the numbers just keep dropping.
I like that.
What do you say? Probably not.
They'll end up paying us.
That would be nice.
But we're happy to entertain, if businesses need help, certainly can ask. Article 10, discussion.
Yo,
Trustee Shipley.
last week we had a strategic planning committee meeting. And it went very well, and they're going to be presenting their findings to the Township Board, I believe, next meeting. But one of the things that came up was apparently the township has got a lot of demand for meeting spaces. And apparently a lot of times organizations and groups can't get meeting spaces either in the Wisner Center or anywhere else. It came up in discussion, and so I just want to leave this as an open thought for the board. What about the old Township Hall where we always used to have the township board meetings decades ago? That's a fine meeting space, and it would serve several purposes. Number one, an additional meeting space that could be scheduled by organizations. I know that the historical committee might be opposed to it. But number two, it would also pique interest in the local history of Cascade. You have, let's say, a neighborhood watch committee that's going to be meeting in there, and they get in there and they see all the history that the historical commission has worked hard to preserve, but nobody ever sees. It's like the state of Michigan has got a beautiful museum down in Fort Custer on the history of the militia in Michigan. But guess what? You can't get into the damn thing because it's a secure base. So how can you appreciate history unless you can see it? So for further discussion later on down the road, I'd like the board to consider that, and the township office to consider opening up the old township hall on Thornapple River Drive, and we use the parking lot of the church with their permission. Open it up to small groups and community groups. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening. You may now wake up to me.
That would also, the park is right there too. So
Yeah,
during
the
nice
little
weather,
pocket
it kind of,
park, yeah.
that-
But it would be ideal for, I'm not saying wedding receptions or anything like that, where you're gonna have partying on, but it would be ideal for small group gatherings.
we could ask for a deposit to make sure everything's,
Whatever Ben and his wonderful staff come up with.
thank you.
Okay, that's all I have. It's my 2 bits worth.
Oh, sorry. Use your words. Anyone else? Any other discussion items? Public comments. Now is the time for anything, whether it's on the agenda or not.
Brian Holcomb, 3415 Glenstone Court. Good evening, everyone. I'm just looking for an update. This is probably going to go to Ben on Eagle Creek landscaping.
So I had a conversation with Madison on Monday. I know she had been in contact with the attorney for Egypt Creek because they had indicated to us that they were contacting Eagle. And we have not heard back from how that meeting went yet. So in the meantime, we sent another communication to Eagle, telling them what we found. We really need them to come and determine what the next steps are. My concern is that we don't have the expertise to go in and tell them to put things back the way they were or whatnot, because they could potentially do more damage trying to put things back. So Eagle really needs to lead that. And again, we hope that if they contacted Eagle, that Eagle would be more receptive, but I don't know how that has happened yet.
Is he on a timeline? Because he could say that for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And to my understanding, when we went to our township lawyers and we sent him the 5-page document or 6, whatever it was, we had teeth in it and we couldn't enforce it because Eagle was not responding because it's been over a year.
So, but we still don't have the expertise to tell them what to do, right? So what I
Okay.
don't want to have happen is for us as the township to say, hey, you need to go in there and pull all this material out of
Right?
the protected wetlands.
Is
And then
Eagle
for
the
Eagle-
only one that can say that?
They have the expertise, yeah.
Okay.
What about, and we have the ability to enforce state Eagle regulations as a township, sort of?
Can we sue them? Can we take them to court and sue them to clean up?
We need Eagle to tell us what they need to do.
Eagle is broke. I gotta watch my language here, but I'm not impressed with Eagle. They keep putting us off. They keep putting the homeowner off. I have no confidence in them.
Should we put you guys, the Egypt Creek on the list for ARPA funds from the county? Hail Mary?
I mean, I wouldn't give them one public dollar to fix what
No,
they did.
no.
That needs to be there.
That needs to be out of their pocket.
Eagle is greatly understaffed. I've known some people also in this predicament waiting for them to respond.
Is there a way to put the burden on the violator without having? Could we ticket them could we just start fining them? We know they're in violation. Could we just start?
Talk to Mike and see if our staff has got the legal authority to issue a citation to at least get them into court.
Maybe Mike should write a letter to Eagle.
So he wrote the letter to
He was the
Egypt Creek, and I
township, but-
believe it was copied to Eagle. I don't know.
What if we ask our lawyers to draft an ordinance that mimics the Eagle regulations?
What would it be effective retroactive? That's the problem.
Sure it would,
But do
because
we
it's
have the
still a law in effect just because Eagle hasn't come out.
But if we have the ability to act or enforce the states, then making something at the time, it would just be redundant, right?
It would be if we had the ability to enforce the state. I don't think we do.
But then Mike, did legal counsel address that? I just can't remember. Do we have the ability what ability do we have over state regulations at the township level?
It was pretty murky. There was a lot of gray area in there. He thought there was a potential pathway to that, but didn't line it up completely.
Maybe ask legal counsel if there's things that we can do at the township level without the expertise on staff that can, like fines or things that are pretty easy to do that make it uncomfortable for the violator.
That's what you gotta do. You gotta put them in a nut.
Yeah, could we have our legal counsel just tell us what our options are? Because I understand Mr. Holcomb's frustration. We're circling around and round and round here, and there's Eagle's
Nothing's
understaffed,
happening.
can't get on top, everybody's pointing fingers. And what recourse do we have as a township? And I think it would be nice if Mike could come and say, you have 1, 2, 3, these options, or no options.
And here's the problem. So it's in your opinion, Ben, as the township manager, which they do seem to be in violation of the Eagle wetlands.
So from
Regulations.
my very generalized understanding of Part 301, yes. That area is designated, around that creek is designated as a protected wetland. And there's very strict regulations what they can and can't do in there. Now, for part 301, you're allowed to go in and you can cut things down in a protected wetland and you can leave it there, right? So if there's a tree you don't like in a protected wetland, there's nothing preventing you from going and cutting it down and leaving it there. What you cannot do is introduce new material into a protected wetland. And it appears that he has several areas where he's bringing spoils from other jobs and putting it in the protected area.
How much is, so you've got the creek, how much
500
is,
feet.
oh, 500 feet, so that,
It's a lot.
He has put stuff into the creek. So that 500 feet, he's at 0. So when he can cut down certain things in a wetlands and a lot of it's a floodplain, which is going to end up further down Turtle Creek, which we all know all the people on Turtle Creek with the airport, when we do flood, because it floods every once in 10 years, they're going to be hounding you. How come we're flooding all of a sudden? So he's definitely in violation of that 500 feet. Now, whether or not you can cut down a tree here or a tree there on wetlands or floodplains, he clear cut. And he's at 0 feet. So 0 to 500, even at 50 feet, he's at 0. He has pushed up into the creek. Now, whether he probably can't put it back, he could hire somebody that knows how to do it to put it back. That's what needs to happen. And he needs to plant the 100, which he can't put 120, 150 foot trees that he cut down, but he needs to replant trees to make it look better than what it looks like now. And you can tell right now, because you can see where the weeds are growing 50, 100 feet guesstimate right now. You can see the new weeds growing where he is clear cut.
part of his parking lot, I drove in, so 500 feet's quite a distance.
Right. There was only one driveway. So anything that's been cleared out, he had one driveway. So on the north side and on the west side, he's clear cut all that and filled it in with stuff. So that all used to be trees, brush, woods. He's clear cut all that.
So this is beyond, so how can we, what can we do at the township level with minimal resources and knowledge?
You were in law school a lot more recently. And I was, but there was something called a writ of mandamus. When you can enforce an agency to exercise their power.
Isn't that literally what the township got sued over in Round Hill to enforce to it, which is like crazy. Yeah, but I don't think we as a township want to.
I got no problem checking with the township lawyers and taking it step by step. But if we wait for him, 3 years from now, you're still going to see me standing here and he's going to have gone nowhere. Because he's going to say whatever it takes to get you off.
Postpone it.
Yeah.
So
He's-
him saying is his, but he's also got a lawyer.
Oh, we do too. The guy with the most lawyer wins.
And our attorney has had good conversations with his attorney, so that might be the most productive means.
Maybe you just start calling the attorney every day because it's billable hours and just racking up his, we should all just call him to.
Because we need a
Touch base.
timeline and what he's going to do and when. And I understand it's going to take 30 or 60 days to go from step A to step B to C to D, but right now we got nothing. And I don't think he is. He says he's going to contact Eagle. Has he? They give you a number. What's the number? What's the docket or case number or whatever? Give us a case number. Now, the lawyer should be able to get that.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Sue 'em. Favorite court.
Let's start with, well, that's what we pay the lawyers for. Thanks for coming tonight and following up on it. Hopefully not, but realistically. Any other public comments virtually or in? Mr. Hughes?
Good evening. The Egypt Valley people are always a hard act to follow.
I know, it takes your thunder.
Oh, yeah, yes, it makes our problem seem so small. I'm thinking back to the March 25th meeting when we first started the discussion about the deer problem and specifically the deer problem around the Burden Park area. And there were a lot of questions and I marked them down. And I'm now in a position to at least share my research with regards to the answer to them. And what I'd like to talk about tonight is, why does it seem like there's so many deer? Well, I think in fact there are, and there's a pretty simple reason for it, and that is deer are genetically wired to reproduce rapidly. And that's been proven not once, but twice by the University of Michigan at their George Preserve, which is near Pinckney. That's about an 1,100 acre space that's completely fenced in, so they can do studies there. And way back in 1928, they cleared out that reserve except for 4 deer, and to see what would happen. And in 5 years, it went from, I'm sorry, it was 6 deer to 162 deer. That's nearly doubling every year for those 5 years. And they repeated that test in 1975 through 1980, that time starting with 10 deer, and it multiplied in 5 years to 212. Again, nearly doubling every year. And the reason why is that that's how they survived against predation, primarily wolves and cougars and roaming dogs. Of course, now the elimination of predators over the last 100 years or so has eliminated the primary reason why the deer herd would be kept under control. Now, there are also, though, other more recent activities that have also encouraged the herd to grow even quicker than that. The primary one is, in our case, and this I'm talking about the Burton Park area, is the suburbanization, I call it, of the area. That area originally was primarily woodlands, and woodlands does not support large deer herds. Deer like what's called edge habitat, which is open fields with that are intersecting, that are interconnected, and then woods nearby for shelter. They also like to have a water source. Well, the Burton Park area has been suburbanized rather rapidly over the last 30, 40 years, with multiple single large residential neighborhoods. Just to name a few: Cascade Farms, Morning Heights, Cascade Lakes, Orange Street Extension, the extension of Orange Street, and Manchester Hills. Now, wildlife experts say that this type of edge suburbanization is perfect deer habitat. And that's why we are seeing more deer. Now, there are collateral effects to the suburbanization. One is it has also eliminated human predation. We don't allow hunting anymore in this area. So that also encourages the deer to multiply, as they will. And then second is the landscaping. Landscaping in these new neighborhoods allows that much more forage for the deer. So it's for all those reasons that the deer herd has increased, but there's even one more, and that is the milder winters that we've been experiencing over the last 10 years. And that means two things. First of all, the overall deer population lives longer. Instead of, let's say, 5 years, they're living now 7 years because they're not having to be called off as a result of harsh winters. And even more so, their does are having more years to have fawns, and they are having fawns as twins and as triplets. So that is even increasing the population more exponentially. So for all those reasons, I think we are experiencing far more deer in the recent years than in the past. That certainly has been my experience, and the people I've talked to has been their experience as well. So it's not just seeming that way, I suspect that it is in fact the case. What I hope is, and I want to say personally, I appreciate that we are pursuing this, that the trustees are pursuing this with Dr. Keys and his students. I really think that is the first step that needs to be done, and to confirm that in fact we do have an overpopulation of deer. I can be proven wrong, but based upon the research so far, I would be surprised if we don't have way more deer than we have in the past, and way more deer than the neighborhood, the area can support. So thank you very much. And again, I look forward to Dr. Key's report.
Thank you. And that will be in the fall, right, Ben?
Yep, so it'll start in August and it'll go through December. So the cameras will be up the whole time, but then what they'll do is they'll take a specific two-week period before the rutting season, during the rutting season, and after the rutting season, and they'll use that to do the population estimate. So my hope will be in late January or early February, they'll have a report back to the board, and we can figure out what the next steps are.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Any other comments?
If anyone of our Zoom participants would like to speak during this public comment, please raise your hand, dial *9 if you are participating by phone, and we'll wait one moment, Supervisor. Looks like no one wants to participate.
Okay. Manager comments.
I just want to thank everybody that participated in the township's 4th of July celebration. It was an awesome day. Everybody from the people that came out, the people that were in the parade, but I have a specific thanks for the fire department and the buildings and grounds department. They do an amazing job of making sure that they run smoothly and everything is picked up. And then specifically, I would like to thank Chief Majors and Lieutenant Albright. Chief Majors for lending his team to the effort. There's about 6 to 8 months of planning that goes into that. And then a lot of that falls on Lieutenant Albright as the community engagement liaison. So kudos to them, but of course, everybody that was involved. Just can't thank you enough for the holiday to make it a little bit better for the residents.
Well said. Board member comments.
Thanks for coming, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Holcomb, and the rest of the group. And anybody out in La La Land, appreciate you being here. Once again, bring your next door neighbor with you next time. We have more chairs. If we fill all these up, there's more chairs to be had. So thanks for coming up.
Well, I've got to make the comment. I'm not opposed to bow hunting or having some archery hunting done basically anywhere in the township that, it's safely accomplished. But we moved into the Deers neighborhood. So if you guys see deer, that's why. And the population, yeah, they grow. We take them out with Buicks, we take them out with bow and arrows, and they love eating our $500 little pieces of landscaping. But, that's how it is. And I'm really not in favor of hiring anybody to come and shoot deer when we have archers that would love to. So I'm going to say I'm opposed to moving down that road. Just so everybody knows, we moved in the Deers neighborhood.
Well, I'm sure the board is excited for the opportunity to be put in the middle of such a clear cut, low emotional decision. Oh,
Sorry, I have
yeah.
no comments over it. I think we used to issue deer hunting permits in this part.
Still do it.
Still do.
There's a precedent.
And Dr. Keys had fantastic, how many permits do we issue, Ben?
We issue 15 permits.
But he had mentioned maybe specific times, I don't know, does that mean 15 people and then they can go hunt anytime that they want?
Correct.
And then can they take as many deer as they have licenses for?
Correct.
So
How
maybe
are-
there's a way to improve that.
Yeah, how are those issued?
People stand in line, starting at usually 5 o'clock in the morning.
Does the township advertise it? Do we have to do 15?
We could, so that's, I believe that's set in the ordinance, but, you know, we could change that. We could change the process. You know, that was really related to pursuing the money for that park. It was very clear without extra points from some of those categories, we weren't going to get funding. So, and one of the things at the time they were pressing for was increased access to hunting land in suburban areas. So by allowing hunting through that permit process, we garnered enough points to get funding for that project.
I'd like to see that as a drawing, so everybody's not standing there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Everyone has a fair and equal chance. Let them come in and put an application in for like a week time period, and then we'll draw. It has to be fair. It can't be just first come, first serve.
And maybe we can give them time periods so we get more people have an opportunity. Because a lot of people don't want one or two deers enough.
And we may want to open up some more areas for hunting.
And typically hunting's dawn and dusk, which is not like that times for humans.
But right now, there's no hunting. Conversion Park.
Burton's tricky because you're so small and you're surrounded by all those neighborhoods.
Exactly.
So you get arrows and bows and bullets and stuff.
No, it's just be arrows.
Yeah,
Arrows only.
I think that's a partial solution, but also have to consider the outline area too. That's only 8 acres.
And that's exactly what he said. He said, when you look at the map, Burton Park is this big, but the green, it's like beltway of suburbia.
Right.
Tricky.
I'm open to more hunting, as long as it's in an area that's safe.
What's the hunting rules as far as property and near homes and that kind of stuff?
So the township does not actually have any hunting rules except for our properties that we own, right? So you can't go and shoot a deer in the middle of the recreation park because we don't allow hunting in the recreation park. But for people on their private property, as long as you can meet the state regulations for hunting, you can hunt your property as much as you want.
Do you know what those are?
I don't.
500 feet from any residence.
450, I think it is.
With a gun or with an arrow, bow and arrow?
Anything.
That's with both.
Unless you own that, residence, and you can be in your backyard if you want, but.
The practical problem is, I live on an acre and I certainly have considered having someone come in and put a deer stand up. The problem is unless you can do a kill shot that drops them immediately, they're gonna wander off into somebody else's yard, or they're gonna wander out of the park into someone else's yard. And then you have a problem explaining why they have a dead deer in their backyard and also dragging it out. So practically, it's very difficult in this area to solve the problem simply by bow hunting, unless it's crossbow hunting. Crossbow hunting, I understand, is more effective. Even then, if you don't have a good kill shot, they will wander off and die someplace else.
Huge problem.
So-
You know,
And then they
there's-
keep having bait, so they reproduce, so it's kind of a,
I don't want to drag this out, but there are other options, and I think the doctor perhaps will address some of those other options. We already heard that in a confined area, if you cull them all out, they're gonna be back. So you got an annual cull that you gotta do. Perhaps if more effective, if the doctor says, hey, we now have birth control pills for the does.
I asked him,
That might be, did you ask him?
he said unfortunately no. Because I thought that I had heard that too.
I had heard that somewhere too.
Wishful thinking.
So when Ann Arbor started their call, they actually did birth control methods. They would actually,
But that was like surgery, right?
yeah. But
Oh,
as of right now, the state actually doesn't allow it. I don't know why, but reading some of the studies, it proved ineffective anyways.
okay, so much for that idea.
All right, so we go back to spongy moth and the helicopter combined with deer overpopulation. We'll just. Well, it's a process, but thank you for coming and good information. Any other comments? Oh, we're done with, sorry. Any other board member comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, of course, kudos for everybody on the 4th of July parade, but also Cascade Connections. All the articles are always really good that we send out to the residents. It's a great way to update residents, but there were a lot of great articles in the last one. I liked all of them. I really liked that the fire department put out the statistics of the accidents and how many accidents happen with fireworks, because we've all had some kind of, when we were kids, some kind of fireworks accident. But I mean, I just thought there was just a lot of really good, not only timely articles, but just all of them were really good. And that's great information to share with our residents. So it's great if Township puts out that Cascade newsletter.
In the Facebook, there was a good one because it had nothing but cakes featured and Scott, and it was really well done. And he explained why he moved to Cascade from Boston and how much he liked the area and how he got involved. And what they've been able to contribute to the community. And I thought that was great. They did that too. So, a lot of good things.
Is there a
Move to adjourn.
Support.
motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey.
Motion carried.
Not so much for birth control for deer. I thought that was an option that they were.
Let's go, Chuck.
Is all righty.
See you, Jim. Bye-bye.
Yep.